All right. This Pasha, Nitzavim, you're learning it so you see from every word and every pasuk is a powerful message. Pashas Nitzavim, you also know that Pashas Nitzavim we always read on the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. And I don't know if you had it in the Hadyon Yoim that you know that we don't Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is actually Rosh Chodesh also. Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Chodesh, Chodesh Tishrei. And yet we're not mevorech that we don't do Birkas HaChodesh. Like every Shabbos mevorchim, we say Birkas HaChodesh. Not on Shabbos before Nafot Tishrei. So it says that for Tishrei, Hashem himself does the Birkas HaKodesh. And with the provision of this koyach that Hashem blesses the month of Tishrei, this provides us with the koyach to bless all the other 11 months that follow. Hashem starts it off, and for this we continue on throughout the whole year, 11 times or 12 times. And the Baal Shem Tov says, what is the bracha that Hashem blesses the month of Tishrei? Where is it expressed? It's expressed in Atem Nitzavim. This is Hashem's bracha. That Eden stand, Nitzavim means they stand steadfast, and they're victorious in their judgment, and they get blessed with a good year. So towards the end of this Pasha, as I said, this Pasha, every word, every pasuk is a phenomenal teaching. Turning towards the end, there is a couple of psukim that say the following. Moshe Rabbeinu says, reflect, re'eh, see, reflect and see that I am placing in front of you today a blessing and a curse. And I'm providing you with a choice of good versus bad, which is also a choice between life and death. I'm providing you with a choice between life and death, which is synonymous with good and bad. Good corresponds to life, and bad corresponds to death. Now, if someone is given that type of a choice, he does not need any further clarification and encouragement and direction as to what he should choose, right? It follows, he would think, it follows naturally that if you say this is the choice between life and death, then any human being would choose life over death. Life is the primary element of the human being, and this is something which goes beyond choosing. There's no challenge to it. There's no competition. And yet, when you look further after that pasuk, it says, and you should choose life. As if it needs to be told that you should choose life. It would seem to be a natural choice. Nobody has to be alerted to that. And for this reason, there is a long Rashi explaining this pasuk. With a long Rashi with a whole mashal, a father who is advising his son that he's presenting him where he should choose the best field in his property, and then he takes him and he shows him the best field, and then he tells him, okay, choose this. And the Rebbe is examining this Rashi and asks, so to speak, obvious questions. This principle of choosing is a very obvious and simple principle, does not need much explanation. And yet Rashi goes on and lengthy explanation and says and extends it even beyond that which is obviously said in these psukim, where not only is he instructed to choose correctly, but he actually takes him to the field and places his hand on it and says, this is what you should choose. There's a lengthy discussion in the Sikha based on certain specific expressions in Rashi and so forth, which we're not going to go into. But we will simply focus in on what is the message that the Rebbe derives from this Rashi. Number one, it has to be understood that for a Yid to follow in the path of Torah mitzvahs, to follow in the path of Avodas Hashem, no matter how clear it is and how advantageous it is, beneficial, there needs to be a conscious choice made. It is not enough that one just floats into it. In general, when we speak about important things in life, a person must make a conscious choice. This conscious choice, for example, I'll come back to this, what I was going to say. For example, all of us here are in yeshiva by choice at an adult and advanced stage in life. It didn't start from 5 years old, from childhood. It started from an adult stage. And at that point, there had to have been a conscious decision on the part of each one of us to make this choice. For if we did not have a conscious decision to make this choice, then we can do whatever we do in yeshiva, follow through in all this dorim and listen and be a very, what's called a good student, a conscientious student, coming on time and so forth. But it's not us who are doing this. And therefore we can go through the yeshiva and learn everything that never learned, and it is essentially something which doesn't pertain to us. It's unrelated knowledge, despite the fact that we learned well and we know it. This is not in the Sikha. I'm just explaining to you the principle of choice is an extremely important principle in human life. I mentioned to you a few times the phenomenon that occurred years back in Eretz Yisrael. There was a young boy, this is going back many, many years, 60 years. There was a young boy in Eretz Yisrael who, from childhood on, knew the whole Torah. Do you remember me talking about it? Mm-hmm. He knew the whole Torah. It's a phenomenal thing. As I mentioned also that I met someone that I knew was a contemporary of mine, and he said that he actually met up with this boy, and he actually began to talk to him. He would quote a Mishnah, and the boy would finish the Mishnah. Any place. He was just standing next to him, and he was just going. So, you would think, oh wow, what a blessing. And we all understood when we discussed it, it was not a blessing. As a matter of fact, they took him to the Bezer Rebbe, and the Bezer Rebbe blessed him that he should forget. Because this does not serve as a blessing. Why not? He knew the whole Torah. And the answer is that anything that one, in this world, in this life, anything that one knows, without having committed himself to get to know it, is not knowledge. On the other hand, it interferes with him being able to accumulate knowledge, to learn anything, because as soon as he starts learning, he doesn't have to apply himself and say, what is it? He already knows it. So he wasn't able to really participate in real life. And it's extremely important that we participate. That when we learn something, to whatever degree we know it, we understand it, it has to be something that we are involved in making, in doing it, in making this choice. So choice in our life, personal choice, is extremely important. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah, presents us with two paths in life. Toy v'ra. Now, the choice between Toiv and Ra is obvious. This is Toiv and this is Ra. This is good and this is bad. Who needs to be alerted and encouraged to choose good over bad? So the first principle is that if one follows the path of good just because it's obvious, he's not really personally committed to it. It's not a personal choice. And therefore, personally, he does not identify with good versus bad. And there has to be this personal commitment. Because otherwise, if he finds himself in a totally different environment, different exposure, he doesn't have his own perspective. He doesn't have his own view on life. So he's in another environment. He is bound to be swept away with another environment. Because it was never him. He never identified with us. It's important also as a product and as a broader perspective on this is that the Rebbe gave us a Torah and a path in life. And he also gave us a neshama, which relates and understands what life is. In other words, what we learn, what we know from the Torah and from Yiddishkeit and from the world, from human values, we have a personal capacity to know and understand it and to relate to it, to the point where we say, this is true, this is false, this is right, this is wrong. We are not merely recorders of what we learned. So we have actual understanding of the value and the correctness of this which we learn. There's an expression in one of the Rabbi Rashab's Maimonim, where the Rabbi Rashab says something like this. It's a long discussion in Big Hemshech Samach Vov. You may have heard of Big Hemshech Samach Vov, one of the great products of the Rabbi Rashab's mind. And he says in there that there's a difference between when a person learns for learning's sake, or if he learns for practical purposes. Like if a Rav learns something because he has to pass in a shayla, it's a completely different approach and a completely different sense of responsibility and sense of understanding than when he is learning academically, which is also good, but it's not the same kind of learning. And he says that when a Rav has to pass in a shayla, truly paskin a shaila that is convoluted and a difficult shaila, and he is learning over these halachas in order to come up with a decision on this question. He learns it to the extent where not only does he know what the Torah says or what the Shulchan Aruch says, but that he agrees with it. That's the extent to which he learns. He says, he learns and says, oh, that's right. You know, Rabbi, you did it right. I agree with you. It's called Me'ames Amitiyus HaTorah. Me'ames. He substantiates the truth of the truth of Torah. As long as he cannot substantiate the truth of Torah, means that he learns something, but he does not really relate to it. If you don't relate to it, how can you pass in a shayla? there are halachas where Apidim, there's an authorized rov required to paskin. Sometimes, one can open up the Shulchan Aruch and say, oh, that's what Shulchan Aruch says, fine. But there are certain things where if it's done on that basis, even though it's absolutely correct, it says so in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Psak Din is wrong. Not that it's wrong from a Psak Din perspective, but the action is wrong. Like what? Akoyim with Tzoras. Or Abchoyer. Abchoyer means an animal, a sheep or goat. Abchoyer. So you can't eat it unless it has a mum. Because without a mum, he has to go to Mizbeach. And if there's no Mizbeach, whatever it is. So if a goat has a mum, you look at a mum, it's missing a limb. Absolutely, you don't need to be an expert to see that this is a mum. So the owner of the goat said, it has a mum, I'm going to shecht it. The answer, the din is, he's not allowed to eat it. He has to bury it, or burn it. Because he did not ask, he did not get an authoritative statement. Only certain people are authorized to a mater b'chayos. And the authority comes from Nosi and Atzasol and so forth. And if he did not have the authority, he is absolutely correct. But it's also, it's prohibited food. He has to actually destroy it. So the position of a Rav is not just scholastic, but it's it's an authority. And as an authority, it has to be his opinion. If he comes to it from scholastics, so he's not really paskening as an authority. He says what the Shulchan Aruch says. That's not an authority. That's a scholar. There's a difference between a Rav and a Rosh Yeshiva. Rosh Yeshiva may be a greater scholar than a Rav, but the Rav has the authority to pass Mishailas, and Rosh Yeshiva does not. It's two different worlds. So I went off a little bit in a tangent in order for us to understand that in fact, despite the fact that we learn Torah and we accept everything that the Torah says, chas v'sholom to question it, but real knowledge means that we have a personal knowledge. We personally understand what it is. And the whole path of Yiddishkeit is heavily connected to the principle that we have a neshama and we know what the truth is. And we have to find that truth in our neshama. Make that choice, make that decision. This is a posuk in the Torah. U'bocharto b'chayim. You should choose life. You shouldn't just float into it. Why do I need to make a choice? Are you making a joke? You have to make a choice. It has to be a personal decision. And based on the elaboration of Rashi on this pasuk, the Rebbe points out that this bechira is based and is drawn from two sources, two levels. There's a bechira on one level. It is what's called a pitam v'das, with reason, on the basis of reason, a compelling argument and reasons. And then there's one that is l'mayla mitam v'das, that is above a reason. It's also a choice, because you sense it, you know it from your soul. It's your personal knowledge, but it's not based on reason. It's above reason. I mentioned just a couple of words from the Rashi that from which the Rebbe explains in these two bases. There's an expression in Rashi that you should choose from Nachalo. Nachalo means inheritance. Choose your property. And then there is an expression in that same Rashi, further elaboration, where instead of the word Nachalo, he uses the word Goyrol. You know what a Goyrol is? A lot. Goyrol is an odd type of a thing, because nobody makes a choice in Goyrol. And yet, Goyrol has the most profound connection to the person. Goyrol means that this is his beyond reason. It is his because it has connection to his very essence, to his very soul. That's called Goyrol. So, the principle of choosing life, of choosing good, the basic approach is, the basic difficulty, so to speak, that Rashi is addressing himself to, indirectly, but this is a problem that's being resolved by Rashi, is the following. Torah mitzvahs, everybody understands. The Eibusher himself gives it to you. It must be, it's the best thing. However, in our world, there's a big challenge to that. Because in our world, it may seem sometimes that going off in a different path, you're more successful than following the path of Torah mitzvahs. There's a pasuk that says, Derech Rishoyim Tzoleicha, the path of Rishoyim, of the evil, is Tzoleicha, is successful. Maduach Derech Rishoyim Tzoleicha. This is a pasuk, Maduach, he was investigating why is Derech Rishoyim Tzoleicha, but there is such a thing. And we know that this is factual. So therefore, it is not such a given that the Eibusher says, if you do the right, you'll be successful. You have the Eibusher's promise, and ultimately that's going to be true. It could be true in this world, it could be true in the next world. It could be true after Mashiach comes. Ultimately, that's to the neshama that is significant. But while you are here in this little narrow view that you're living in, and with all the challenges that you have, hey, that's not an easy decision to make. So for this, Rashi is pointing out, he said in the basis of the Psukim, that we have to make that choice. And the choice has to be made on both levels. The choice has to be made on the reason level. What is the reason level? For this, Rashi gives a mashal. You should choose because Hashem said this is good. Okay, Hashem said this is good, but I'm looking around the world, I'm not seeing it not necessarily compelling. So Rashi explains it with a mashal. What is the mashal? The mashal is a father who is talking to his son, and he says to him, choose and select the best property, the best section in my property. And then he takes the son and says, here, this is the best section in the property. Take this. What is significant in this mashal? And why do you need a mashal? How does the mashal help you? The significance of this mashal is that when a father talks to his son, there is a special trust, special relationship. The son has absolute trust in his father. Number one, the father is giving out his property. Who knows his property better than himself? He knows all his properties. And number two, who is interested in the benefit of the son more than the father? So therefore he is for sure, he has a full trust on both scores, in terms of identifying the best property and in terms of wanting it for the best for his son. So this is the first approach. This is the reasoning. Hashem, Eden are called Hashem's children. And certainly this is part of his property, life in the world. So Hashem is telling you, choose this. Reasonably, one should reflect that you can trust Hashem. You can trust Hashem that he certainly knows what's best, and he certainly wants the best for you. In other words, one should reflect on when he makes choices in life, makes choices that involve Torah questions, Yiddishkeit questions. And he knows that in Hashem's Torah it says such and such. He should reflect that it is totally rational, that he should trust Hashem's choice for him, Hashem's suggestion. Because who else knows what's best for him? Who else knows what's best available? The Torah is clearly Hashem's presentation, Hashem's Torah, and Yidden are Hashem's children. So with all the difficulty that we went through, that the Jewish people have seen in these 3,500 years, they mustn't forget and understand that Hashem is still remains our loving Father, and we can trust Him to make the best choice for us. Except we have to employ our intellect. We have to actually reflect on this to the point where that becomes a compelling force to make the right choice. To make the choice on the basis that I understand and I know, we can be confused. But when we look in Shulchan Aruch and it says this is what you should choose, and you have a challenge, you have an nisayon. If I go this way, I may be more successful the way it would appear to me. It's very simple. In our world, to say a lie is very often more advantageous than the truth. And everybody, I'm sure, can have an example of that. Right?
Many
Many examples. And yet, Shulchan Aruch says, Hashem says, do not say a lie. It's for your benefit not to say a lie. There's an expression, a Yiddish expression. The worst truth is better than the best lie.
What about when you're not hurting someone's feelings?
What'd you say?
Sometimes there's just scenarios that you have to tell a lie for So you don't
No, that's Shulchan. That's you're allowed to. That's a piece of Shulchan. You're talking about a life for your personal benefits. It all depends, you know. But if the Shulchan Aruch says no, this you should not, that is the most beneficial thing. And in terms of a lie and the truth, we have very clear rationale for that. Because you may go through a certain circumstance, a certain situation, and you say, saying a lie will be more advantageous. But that puts you vulnerable to be found out that you lied.
Puts you?
Huh?
Puts you what?
Vulnerable, makes you vulnerable. And if you found out, you lose trust in other people, in people's eyes. And in long term, it goes against you. The fact is that people that are obviously trustworthy, you can be trusted. You know that their word is a word, their promise is a promise. They are much more readily accepted to whatever position they need to be accepted. That's the reality of it. So this is on one level. This is on the rational level, making a choice on the rational level. Then there is another level. The other level is what's called goyrol. Goyrol is beyond rationale, beyond reason. The difference between the choice of goyrol or the choice of an achla, as Rashi explained and the Rebbe explained, goyrol is like throwing lots, which means that something that comes to you by goyrol is already identified as being yours. It has been preordained by the Meibush. Now this is yours. You just have to go and take it. What is this referred to? This refers to the principle, like I said before, that from the perspective of the Jewish soul, perspective of a Yid, of what a Yid is, he and Torah are one thing. In truth, the whole principle of choice, really by Yidden, in terms of choosing Hashem, of choosing Torah and choosing Hashem's way, the word the choice needs to be qualified, needs to be explained. Because normally the word choice means you choose between two paths. But a Yid does not have two paths. Not because he doesn't have mitzad Yetzer Hara. Mitzad Yetzer Hara he has, but mitzad who he is as a Yid, he doesn't see two paths. There's only one path that he sees. It's the path of Torah and mitzvahs. So what is the principle of choice then? And it's also called Bechira. Why is it called Bechira? And again, Bechira is necessary. In all cases, there has to be a conscious choice. What is a choice if there is no other path? The principle of Bechira, from that perspective, means that I choose it without being coerced, without anything compelling, without anything that forces me to choose. I choose this volitionally, by free will. Personally. As we said before, Now, there's much to elaborate on this, but I wanted principally to come back to us to understand how significant and how important it is to recognize, to find yourself into it, to recognize that this is something which is of my choice. Now, but this is me. No matter how difficult, no matter how many challenges come my way, but this is me. Would anyone prefer that he had a different nose? Maybe there's a nicer nose. Would you like to exchange your nose with somebody else? Why not? It's nicer. But this is mine. That's a minor thing. I mean, there are certain idiots that do exchange noses, you know. In this world, you can find everything. Huh? Nose dropping, whatever it is. Which is mine. There's a kind of a presentation of the idea of mine. It says that when Mashiach will come, and everybody will be relieved of their burden, and Mashiach will come, finish, no more burdens, we get relieved. So everybody takes what's called his package, his burden, and throws it into a big common ball, common area, throws it away. Okay, I'm relieved. And then he starts looking around, runs around the whole ball, and examines all the different packages. He examines all the different packages. He quickly runs to pick his package back. I want my package back. I don't want anybody else's. Like this, we go walk around and say, oh, he has it better, he has it better, he has it better. But when we actually throw the package away, we quickly claim it back. Because everyone has his package, the one that is suited for him to work out, for him to perfect, and for him to purify. And that becomes his personal accomplishment in life. And this is, as I said, this is not in the Sikha, but personally it's quite obvious. The Seder begins with Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem. You are standing steadfast, Lifnei Hashem Elokeichem, you're standing in front of Hashem. And then at the end it says, you have to make your choice. How do you make a choice? The choice is made by standing steadfast, by knowing yourself. The choice is made by identifying yourself. When the person finally makes a choice, you can consult many people. When you finally make a choice, it's between you and Hashem. There's nobody else there. If you include someone else in your choice, it will continue to haunt you until you make a personal choice. Purely personal choice. Advice is wonderful, and everybody should seek advice. There's no question about it. But then you have to conceal yourself within your own mind and make a choice. And that is provided, that ability is provided by this, which Moshe Rabbeinu says, I said, this is the bracha the Rebbe gives Eden, that you, all of you, Nikulchem, that's what Rashi says, all the various rangs, all the various levels of the Jewish community, Rosheichem, Shivteichem, Feitavitzachem, Meshoy Ben Lecho, all, from top to bottom, all have the capacity of standing up, steadfast, and making their choice. Hashem should help that we should make a steadfast and a clear choice in the Advent and in transition to the new year. And with this, the Rebbe should bless everyone with success. Surely everybody will make a choice, will make the correct choice. You cannot make a wrong choice because it's you. Right? It's your choice.
You can't make a wrong choice.
It will be wrong if you make a choice because of somebody else. But if you make a choice, then it's a right choice. Because as you said, everybody has an neshama. If you consciously make a choice, it is your choice. It can be trusted. And the main thing is that you should be successful in making the right choice, and you should be successful in following through on that choice. You should all have a blessed and successful year. Shall have Surah Stavis, and everyone should have much hatzlacha in the forthcoming year. In every respect, begashmis and beruchnis, in all aspects. All difficulties should be behind us, and we should all face a bright and a beautiful, successful future.
Amen.